It's awesome to travel with your husband. What do you want for a souvenir? I can almost see the smirk on my sister's face as she's clearly on a romantic getaway. But calmly, without getting angry, I respond. I'm busy with my niece's funeral right now. Also, my husband is right here next to me. What? My words leave her pale, and literally Susan was flying back on a plane and saw something. My name is Yvonne. I'm a 29-year-old part-time wife. Though I've only recently started introducing myself as a wife. Since I just got married a few days ago. My husband, Ryan, and I were colleagues at work, and we developed a good relationship, eventually making it official. We considered a huge wedding ceremony a waste of time and simply got married. We do want to take photos in a wedding dress at some point, but now during the busy season isn't the time. The reason we got married during such a busy period is all about timing. It's busy now, but it's going to get even busier, and dragging our feet on getting married seems inefficient. A loveless, cold marriage? No way. We've decided never to mix work and personal life. At work, we're both super workaholics, but at home, we switch off completely. At home, we're very much the sweet newlyweds. Even without a huge ceremony, we visited each other's families to formally introduce ourselves. That's how smoothly and simply our marriage went. Except for one problem. The problem is my sister, Susan, who's 5 years older than me. Susan is already married and has settled down, but she was famously promiscuous back in the day. Well, famous in my eyes at least. Worse, she has a habit of taking what belongs to others. In general, when it comes to siblings, the basic idea is since you're the older sister, you should let your younger sister have it. That's such an outdated way of thinking, and my parents never said such things. But far from dismissing this old-fashioned idea, my sister twisted it into what's mine is mine, and what's my sister's is also mine. Meaning, she stole my boyfriend. My first boyfriend was when I was in 8th grade. Given our age, it was more of a cute, playful kind of love, but my sister said, "Oh, isn't he adorable?" and took him from me. My boyfriend, just 14, was taken by my sister, who was 19 at the time. Unbelievable, but with my sister, it happened. And after breaking up with me, my ex would get dumped by her once she was done being interested. In other words, my sister enjoyed the game of stealing from me more than anything else. Heartbroken, I didn't have a boyfriend for a while, but in my senior year of high school, I started dating someone. It was during a busy time with exams, so he was more of a comfort than anything special. However, when we happened to be studying at my house one day, my sister, now working, came home and said, "Oh, isn't he adorable?" Using that line I had heard before, and once again, she took my boyfriend. Why is it so easily stolen? My sister and I don't look alike. I have an ordinary face like our dad. Meanwhile, my sister inherited our beautiful grandmother's looks, even more beautiful than our pretty mom. I hate to admit it, but my sister is truly beautiful. And even without exercising or dieting, she has a great figure. I can't help but feel resentful as I struggle with diets without success. And teenagers, after all, tend to choose based on looks. The allure of an older, beautiful woman was too much for them to resist. After experiencing heartbreak twice because of my sister, I chose a college far away. I lived alone while working part-time and then got a job. I never returned to my hometown. Because who knows what my sister would do if I came back. Now my sister is married and a mother of one. I'd like to think she wouldn't go after my boyfriend, now my husband, but I can't be too careful. People don't change that easily, I believe. When I went home to announce my marriage, my sister wasn't there. I've got a bad feeling about this. My husband, fully aware of the situation, just laughed it off, saying, "Well, it should be fine. We're far apart and hardly see each other anyway." He's laughing now, but I wonder if he can keep laughing if he meets my sister. After all, my boyfriends in the past, who also said, "It'll be fine," were anything but fine once my sister made her move. But Ryan is a mature 30-year-old. I'd like to think he wouldn't waver just because a pretty woman shows interest. I want to trust my husband, but it's my sister we're talking about. The one who laughs as she steals her sister's boyfriends and then discards them, laughing again, saying, "I can't believe you dated such a loser." I trust my husband, but I don't trust my sister at all. One day, I got a call from my sister. Reluctantly, I answered, thinking it'd be childish to ignore her. "Long time no see. I'm surprised you got married." That was my sister's first remark to me in a long while. I regretted picking up the phone. "But you got married so late." "I got married at 27, you know." She was taking a dig at me for being only 2 years older at the time of her marriage. "My daughter, who's now 5, is rumored to be a genius. She's beautiful, just like me. Good thing she doesn't take after her aunt." Then she insulted me. A dig at me, her niece's aunt, right? After rattling on about her own happy life, my sister finally asked, "So, what's your husband like?" At that question, I just knew it. So, I just said, "He's a good guy." "What's his income?" "Probably about half of what your husband makes." "What about his looks?" "He's just an ordinary guy who matches me." Sorry, Ryan. In my heart, you're the world's coolest husband, but I have to say this to my sister. I apologized to my husband in my mind. Average all around, huh? That's why I'm saying he's average. What does he do? He works at the same company as me. Oh, what's that? An affair with a boss that led to a marriage of convenience? No way! We both were single and just dated normally before getting married. What kind of fantasy is that? But my sister just laughed over the phone, saying, "Well, that's so you. Hope you guys are happy. It'd be nice if your marriage lasts." And with that annoying remark, she hung up. I was in a bad mood all day. A few days later, something unbelievable happened. "Hey Yvonne, wanna go out for lunch today?" My coworker and friend Anna suggested. I agreed, and as we were about to head out to the lobby, "Yvonne, there you are. I was just about to have you paged at the reception." Perfect timing. Turning around at the sound of my name, I grimaced and let out a weird noise. Why? Because my sister was rushing over. My sister, who's supposed to live 2 hours away by train, why is she here? "What are you doing here?" "Oh, just took a little trip down here." She says it like she's just out on a shopping errand. Is that even a thing, taking a little trip here? Plus, this place isn't a tourist spot or anything. While giving clearly suspicious excuses, my sister looks around and says, "Huh, quite the fancy company, isn't it?" I have a bad feeling. Please, husband, don't show up now. Just as I was thinking that, I heard Yvonne, and my heart sank. Turning around, there were several colleagues standing, including my husband. Heading out for lunch now? Yeah, sort of. Oh, who's this? Nice to meet you. I'm Yvonne's sister. She's always talking about how much she owes to all of you. Saying that, my sister shakes hands without waiting for me to stop her. Oh, hello. We're always grateful for your sister's help. Oh my, what a handsome man! My sister exclaims while shaking hands. Hold on, Yvonne. How is he just average? Huh? He's even more handsome than my husband. My sister starts wriggling her body around. This is what you call locking on. If you ever have any trouble with something, don't hesitate to contact me. With that, my sister handed over a note with her contact information and left. Why would she even prepare something like that? See ya! Leaving us stunned, my sister took off. Wow, your sister's something else, huh? Said one of the colleagues who happened to be there. All I could do was give a wry smile in response. Then, suddenly, my sister called again a little while later. I was going to just let it ring, but after several calls, I reluctantly called back. I'm going on a trip soon, so I've decided to leave my daughter at our parents' house. Take care of anything that comes up, will you? What? You know our parents' place is quite far from mine, right? Well, the folks are getting on in years and don't have much energy. It's fine, fine, there's a weekend in between. Whether it's fine or not is for the receiving end to decide, not the one making the request. A trip, just you and your husband? I know they need a break every now and then. As I was saying this, I heard a man's voice in the background. Who are you talking to? Oh, is your husband taking the day off? It was a weekday, and I was on my break from work when I returned my sister's call. My sister's a homemaker, but her husband works at an office. Wasn't he supposed to be at work on a weekday? Hold on, I'm talking to my sister. Yvonne, right. Hearing that voice, I exclaimed, wait, what? My sister responded, what? Who are you with right now? Don't tell me. Just happened to run into your husband here. We're family, after all, so no worries. What are you talking about? Anyway, take care. Ignoring my protests, my sister hung up the phone. Unbelievable. My shout echoed through the break room. Later on, I learned that my niece had been dropped off at our parents' house. Apparently, my sister told our parents she was going to travel with a friend. It seemed the trip coincided with her husband's long business trip, which is why my niece was left with our parents. A trip for an affair? Unbelievable. I muttered under my breath, causing my mom to tilt her head in confusion, but I just shook my head as if it was nothing. As much as I'm upset with my sister, my niece is innocent in all this, so here I am on my day off, taking care of my adorable niece at my parents' house. Look, Yvonne! Isn't it cute? It really is, you drew it so well. My niece, Elisa, shows me a picture of her beloved guinea pig with innocent joy. When I praise her, she beams with happiness. Indeed, my niece is very cute, and she'll surely grow up to be beautiful. I clenched my fist, determined to protect her pure heart from becoming like my sister. However, the situation took a sudden turn. After a while, a scream from my niece turned the house into chaos. The next day, I was still at my parents' house on my day off. I was busy running around when my sister called. Despite being annoyed to get a call during such a busy time, thinking maybe she was worried about her daughter, I answered only to hear her carefree voice, making me want to hang up immediately. I'm really busy, what's up? Oh, here's just amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna hang up now. Wait, guess who's next to me right now? A friend, I guess? Right. So, what's your husband doing now? Is something wrong with Ryan? He's not there, is he? Must be out, huh? Her insinuating tone irritated me, but I took a deep breath and tried to be patient. What do you want? Hey, you're on the phone with someone again. Suddenly, a man's voice came through the phone. My sister laughed and replied, Just wait a sec, Ryan. Did you hear that? Though I knew she was doing it on purpose, I responded, didn't hear anything. It's just too much hassle to deal with. Oh, is that so? That's a shame. Well, you probably heard but are just pretending you didn't, right? Sorry, I'm the only one happy here. Look, I'm really busy right now. Can we talk later? Don't be like that, it'll be quick. So, about the trip with your husband, it was amazing. She really said it outright. But my heart wasn't stirred. I remained incredibly calm about that. Thinking I was silent and upset because she couldn't see my face, my sister didn't wait for my reply and continued. So, I bought you souvenirs. The person I'm with will bring them back, so let's eat them together. It seems she's not even trying to hide it anymore. Oh, by the way, what do you want for a souvenir? Something sweet? Listen. I couldn't keep up with her anymore and said, Right now, I'm at Lisa's funeral. What? There was a delay before she replied. Didn't you hear? Your daughter, my niece Lisa, we're at her funeral. What? What are you talking about? Stop joking. I don't joke about life and death. I paused for a moment, looking up at the person standing next to me. My husband is right here beside me. What? From the other end of the phone, I could hear her panicking. What do you mean by that? Ignoring her, I hung up. My husband, Ryan, chuckled at my frustrated huff. Hours later, Lisa! Someone burst into the house screaming. Needless to say, it was my sister. Apparently, she was a mother after all. She must have caught the first plane back. My sister, looking frantic, burst into the living room where we were relaxing. What do you mean Lisa's funeral? My sister yelled as she entered, then her eyes went wide in shock. To her surprise, a young voice called out, "Mommy?" Lisa? What do you mean? You said funeral. My niece's eyes filled with tears. Great, just when she had finally stopped crying. She must have remembered and started to feel sad again. Mommy, Lily is. She pointed to the empty cage. What? My sister looked at me, demanding an explanation. Lisa's beloved guinea pig passed away yesterday. It was old, so it was inevitable. You said Lisa's funeral. Oh, that. I meant Lisa's beloved guinea pig's funeral. Didn't you get that? How could I possibly get that? My sister's scream echoed through the house. Ignoring that, I looked at the man who came with my sister. And who is this? Pointing to the man, my sister, who had slumped to the floor as if her legs gave out, said half angrily, "What are you talking about? That's your husband. Why am I the one getting yelled at?" Like I said earlier, my husband is right here beside me. Enough with your jokes. My sister glared at me, then finally noticed the man sitting beside me. Who's that over there? How rude. This is my husband, Ryan. What? My sister's eyes went wide as my husband, Ryan, greeted her with a wry smile. Hello, I'm Yvonne's husband. Then who's this Ryan over here? He's a different person with the same name, Ryan. What? Yes, the person standing next to my sister. It just so happens he's also named Ryan. And both my husband and I know him well. Because you said this guy was your husband at work. I never said that. This Ryan is a friend from high school who just happened to join the same company. I got close to him because we shared the same name as my husband. Then, my friend Ryan introduced me to my now husband Ryan, and we started dating and eventually got married. That makes no sense. What are you talking about? What makes no sense is you showing up at the company out of the blue, ignoring my husband Ryan, and giving your phone number to my friend Ryan. And Ryan, being Ryan, saying something like, "I've always been taken care of by your sister." Seriously, he's always been a ladies' man. Everyone was shocked. My sister was speechless at my explanation. That day, when my sister stormed into the company, the man she ran into while I was about to go to lunch with a friend was among several male colleagues, including both Ryans. It seems my sister only has eyes for handsome men, so she was fixated on my friend Ryan, and my ordinary-looking husband who easily blends into a crowd went unnoticed. Why didn't you correct me? I asked you why you married such an ordinary sister. Well, I didn't deny it, but I didn't affirm it either. I just said, Susan is more attractive than Yvonne. My friend Ryan suggested maybe they should stop being friends. My sister's face went from red to pale, busy with emotions. Ryan, you're also to blame. Why go after a married woman? My husband spoke up, a bit angrily. My friend just shrugged, looking troubled. I was just playing around because she said we should officially date since she's divorced now. What did you just say? My sister turns red again at his words. What do you mean playing around with me? A man's voice responds. So, were you serious then? Of course I was. I even went as far as getting a divorce, huh? Realizing that the voice didn't come from the husband or friend in front of her, my sister slowly turns to look at the door leading into the living room. And her eyes widened in shock. Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be on a business trip? The other party had to cancel, so it ended early. When I got home, no one was there, which surprised me. I was about to call you, but then Yvonne called me, telling me you were here. So, what's this about you divorcing me? Well, that was just a joke. My sister is stunned. Above her, still slumped on the floor, my friend Ryan speaks up. What do you mean? So, you haven't divorced? So, you were just playing with me too? You're in no position to blame me. Ridiculous. What did you just say? I have no use for a woman who lies about something as serious as divorce. And my friend Ryan said to my sister's husband. I'm terribly sorry for what happened, even though I was unaware. Wait, Ryan! I was serious. Oh? Her husband's voice is cold as she tries to cling to him. Turning around, my sister faces her husband, who's looking at her with equally cold eyes. Wait, that was just a little joke. I'm tired of your lies. What? All those lies about taking care of the kids while I was away on business, going out with friends, and even that lie about divorcing me. Well, that was because... But it's sad you became a liar. What? Confused, my sister looked at her husband, who nodded as if agreeing with something. So, let's get a divorce. That way, what you said won't be a lie anymore. What? Well, we're not divorced yet, but we will be, which is a slight difference, but that's within an acceptable range. Wait a minute! Of course, I'll take care of Lisa. You'll be paying child support. Wait, please! No waiting. From now on, we'll communicate through lawyers. Lisa, let's go home. Saying that, the husband reached out his hand to his niece. Confused, the niece asked, Going home? Yes. He nodded. Wait! Are you trying to take her mother away from my daughter? My sister screamed, thinking she could change the situation by using her daughter as leverage. The husband paused for a moment. And then looked at Lisa. Lisa, would you be sad without mommy? To which Lisa immediately answered, No, I wouldn't be sad. What? Wait, Lisa, you're okay without mommy. Panicked, my sister looked at her daughter. Because mommy, when daddy isn't home, is always gone. She tells me to watch TV because she's going out, and when she comes back, it's late at night. Dinner is always cold. And I have to take a shower alone, even though I'm scared. Susan, you know what? It must have all been news to her. Her husband glares at her with a look that could kill. What, are you blaming me for pushing parenting onto you? You said you'd show me how to raise our child well by being a stay-at-home mom. And sure, I took care of the kids on weekdays, but I was primarily in charge on weekends. You've been lying to me all this time, pretending to be tired? Well, that's enough. I'll hear all about your affair from your lover later. We'll discuss the rest with a lawyer. Wait, honey. I don't care. Lisa, let's go. Okay. Bye, Mom. As she reaches out desperately, her daughter easily says goodbye, leaving Susan's hand to fall. The door closes mercilessly in front of a slumped Susan. After discussions, Susan and her husband divorced. It turned out Susan had been unfaithful not just with my friend Ryan but others too, leading to a divorce fully on her fault. Even the trip she claimed was for leisure was actually an affair. My friend Ryan ended up paying compensation to Susan's husband. And left the company, saying it was a man's way to take responsibility. Who had always been popular with women, hopefully learned a lesson about sincere relationships. As for Susan, don't come back until you've sorted out your debts, her parents told her, effectively kicking her out. Susan couldn't afford child support, so our parents covered it. They don't expect to get their money back, but want to see their granddaughter Lisa. Homeless and unable to return to her parents, Susan contacted me. I thought it was weird. You marrying such a handsome guy. All right, you asked for it, don't ever contact me again. I hung up. In a panic, she called back multiple times, I'm sorry. It was all my fault. I won't go after your men anymore. I hung up without a word and blocked her. I don't know what became of Susan after being abandoned by both her parents and me. Someone from the neighborhood who knew my sister said they saw someone who looked like Susan, but she was so gaunt that there was no trace of her beauty left. But I don't know. Whether it was really her or not, I doubt I'll ever see my sister again. I'm exhausted. You've had it tough. Ryan, my husband, chuckles as he hands me a warm glass of milk while I crack my shoulders. Thanks, I say, staring at him. What's up? You're making me blush. No, just thinking what a good man you are. You're the only one who says stuff like that. Well, that's fine by me. Only I need to understand your charm. Laughing at that, he smiles and hugs me. My name is Heather. I'm 41 years old. I work as a preschool teacher. I live with my husband, Jeff, and my daughter, Emma, in a suburb not far from downtown. I met Jeff at a mixer that I was dragged to by a junior colleague to fill the numbers. At that time, I was in my late 30s, completely out of place at a matchmaking party dominated by people in their 20s, but Jeff, who was in his early 30s, also seemed equally uncomfortable. A strange sense of camaraderie developed between us, and we started talking, hitting it off quite well. And about a month into seeing each other, Jeff confessed that he was actually divorced and had a 9-year-old daughter, Emma. Moreover, Jeff said, Emma is friendly and a good girl, so I'm sure you'll get along well. Don't worry, I'd like us to date with the intention of getting married. I was happy at the thought of having a daughter and gladly accepted. However, Jeff's daughter, Emma, was openly hostile towards me from the first time I met her, which was not what I had been led to expect. Who is this lady? Dad, you're dating her? That's so lame. Hey, Emma. That's rude. Sorry, she doesn't usually say stuff like this. Oh well, it's okay. I don't mind. I was surprised by Emma's words, but thought she was just nervous. After all, it's understandable that a third grader would resist a stranger suddenly entering her family. I decided to slowly get closer to Emma. But no matter how many times we met before the marriage, Emma's attitude didn't change. Sometime later, Emma, Dad is going to marry Heather, so she's going to be your stepmom now. I was introduced again, but Emma said, I can't believe this old hag is my new stepmom. I'll be laughed at school. Everyone else's mom is young, pretty, and fashionable. I started to think it might be better to call off the remarriage given Emma's state, but Jeff just said, well, once the three of us start living together, she'll gradually get used to it. I wonder if this is really okay. Filled with doubts, I still went through with the marriage to Jeff. 3 years have passed since then, and Emma has become a 6th grader, but she still treats me coldly. In fact, as she grew older and became more articulate, she started to be more verbally abusive. Emma, you really need to fix your attitude. At first, Jeff would get angry at Emma, but as her attitude remained unchanged, he seemed to get fed up and began to ignore it. Moreover, Jeff started to be harsher with me, saying, if you and Emma can't get along after all this time, maybe it's your fault? You're a preschool teacher, but can't handle one child? And look, we've been married for 3 years, and we still don't have our own children. Maybe I should have remarried someone younger like Emma said. What's that supposed to mean? You're blaming me for everything, including Emma's issues and the child matter? I'm trying my best here. Without defending me from Emma's attacks, Jeff began to treat me harshly as well, and I felt myself growing weaker. One day, a mom friend stopped me. I saw your husband, Jeff, in the car with Susan. I just wondered if you knew about it. Susan is the mother of Emma's classmate and, I've heard, a single mom. Why would he be with someone like her? I was a bit suspicious, but I brushed it off to prevent any strange rumors. Susan mentioned she wanted to move soon, so I told her my husband works in real estate and could help. The mom friend seemed convinced and left, but my suspicions about Jeff remained. Something definitely feels off. It might be worth looking into. I decided to hire a private investigator to look into Jeff and Susan. 2 months later, Jeff and Emma went out, leaving me alone at home. Suddenly, I heard the front door being roughly opened and, frozen in shock, saw Jeff, Emma, and, surprisingly, Susan barging into the living room. Hey, a new mom is going to live here, so pack up all your stuff, clean up the house, and leave. What? Emma started spouting nonsense as soon as she walked in, leaving me bewildered. Hey Emma, you can't just spring this on her, she won't understand. Heather, sorry, but we're getting a divorce. Please leave this house. Yeah, there's no place for an old hag here anymore. Jeff and Emma were smirking at me, enjoying themselves. Meanwhile, Susan stood beside them, chin up, looking triumphant. Hello Heather, sorry for all this suddenness. But Emma is happy she's getting a younger, prettier mom. So, could you just quietly get the divorce? A happy family is the best, after all. You're just not fit for it. I had never really spoken to Susan, even at PTA meetings, but now she was blabbing proudly. Please pack your things and leave today. Look, I know this is shocking, but don't just stand there. Don't you have anything to say? I was speechless in front of the three of them barging in and saying whatever they wanted. However, as I had been wanting to divorce Jeff and Emma due to their unreasonable behavior, I saw this as a good opportunity and decided to go with it. All right. My response, like a child being given a chore, surprised them. Hey, are you really understanding this? You're getting a divorce and leaving this house? Yes, I understand. But just to confirm, I can pack up all my stuff, right? That's what we're saying. Forgot already, old lady? If Emma had been my real child, I would have scolded her harshly, but after all, she was nothing more than a stranger to me. I ignored the noise. Well, we're going to a spa resort for the night, so make sure you deal with your stuff and leave before we get back. See you. And with that, they left, laughing as if they had resolved some annoying issue. I found it odd that Susan, who also had a child in Emma's class, would leave her own kid behind, but I didn't have time to ponder. All right, not much time until tomorrow, gotta get moving. Left alone in the living room, I hurried to start packing. I wonder if they realize what they said about packing all my stuff. Actually, all the furniture and appliances in the house were bought by me. These were items I had purchased in preparation for our marriage, paid for in full. Because I had substantial savings from being single until I was 38. However, Jeff's payments for his half had become increasingly lax and eventually forgotten. Thus, I decided these were my personal belongings and had no hesitation in calling a junk removal service to take them away. TV, washing machine, fridge, and even the dresser, I emptied everything and disposed of them. Ah, what a different kind of exhaustion from playing with the kids all day. After completing this heavy work in one day, I decided to treat myself by staying at a luxury hotel near the station for a while. The next afternoon, relaxing in the hotel room, I received a call from Jeff. Hello? Answering the phone reluctantly, Jeff was almost shouting. Hey! The house is practically empty. And you just left the fridge empty and standing there. What were you thinking? What was I thinking? Well, all that stuff was bought by me. Forgot? You ended up not paying a dime. Oh, yeah, that was the case, but this is too much. Is bringing home a mistress and demanding a divorce any less excessive? Ugh, damn it. I wanted to hand him the divorce papers as soon as possible. When should I bring over the divorce papers? I was about to say, but Jeff, as if remembering something urgently, suddenly asked in a hurry. Wait, what about that? What? What do you mean by what? The dresser. The one with all the drawers. Where did you put that? I put it with the rest of the stuff, for the junk removal people to take away. Are you kidding me? I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. Jeff was yelling so loudly. Why are you so mad? I bought that dresser. Did you like it that much? He was so fixated on the dresser that I asked why he was so desperate. I had savings hidden in there. I was shocked by his answer, reminiscent of something from a bygone era. In the back of a drawer, there was money in an envelope. How did you not notice? Well, it was hidden, so it's not like I could have known. Sorry. I didn't think I was at fault, but I apologized anyway. That only made Jeff angrier. Where? Which collection service did you use? Tell me. After I told him the company's name, Jeff hung up immediately. Probably he rushed to recover the money. Ah, I forgot to bring up the divorce papers. I realized after he hung up, but figured he'd contact me soon enough, so I waited. As expected, Jeff called me the next day. Come to the house right now. I had wanted to sign the divorce papers and return the house keys anyway, so I took everything necessary and headed to the house. As I entered the living room, the three of them were waiting, looking furious. Hey, why did you throw everything away? There's no washing machine, no fridge, no microwave. We can't live here for a while. Emma was yapping at me as soon as we met. Didn't Dad tell you anything? I bought all of that. Emma, you said so yourself. Clean out all your stuff. Emma looked frustrated, and Susan jumped to her defense. Hey! That's so immature, fighting with a child. That's why she doesn't like you. This child has been calling me an old hag since we first met. My attitude is irrelevant. Besides, once we decided to divorce, we're practically strangers. This wicked woman. Anyway, give back the money. Money? Oh, you couldn't recover it? Jeff apparently rushed to the junk collection site after our call but couldn't find the dresser among the massive piles of trash. So, I want the $10,000 back, right here, right now. Losing $10,000 did sting, but I refused Jeff's demand. No. What do you mean no? You threw away my money. You have to pay me back. It's not just no, it's more like I don't need to pay you back. How can you think like that? Jeff looked puzzled at my confident reply. I pulled out a document from my bag and thrust it at him. I'm demanding alimony from you for the adultery and the verbal abuse that caused me mental distress. I had a lawyer draw up the documents right after I got to the hotel, paying a rush fee. The alimony amount was well over the $10,000 Jeff had hidden in the dresser. I'll deduct the $10,000 from the amount written here. So, I don't need to pay you. But you'll need to pay the rest of the amount. Jeff stared at the alimony pledge, and after understanding what it stated, he glared at me. What a greedy woman. No wonder you were single till now. Say whatever you want. It doesn't affect me. Ignoring Jeff's words, I pulled out another document from my bag and handed it to Susan. This is the compensation for emotional distress for you. What? She was apparently not expecting to be charged after having an affair. She snatched the documents from my hand. Wait, this is too much. I'm a single mother. As Susan cried out, Jeff, after reading her part of the settlement, glared at me as if he were looking at a demon. Hey, do you not have a heart? Charging this amount to someone raising a child alone is too much. The worst. You really are a wicked witch. Jeff and Emma both attacked me at the same time. But they didn't know the truth. I slowly approached Susan and said, Susan, you haven't told these two the real story, have you? Yikes! Susan let out a squeak as if my face, called a wicked witch by Emma, truly terrified her. What are you talking about? Don't threaten Susan. Oh, sorry. But I thought it was known. Susan hasn't divorced her husband yet. What? Wait a minute. Next to a panicking Susan, Jeff and Emma froze. That's a lie, right? You said you were already divorced. Ah, well, You're technically just separated. Isn't your child with your husband right now? Why do you know that? Is it true? Yes, it's true. Unable to lie any longer, Susan quickly admitted. That's why that kid hasn't been coming to school lately. Emma muttered, seeming to understand. So what? We're about to get divorced anyway, just need to sign the papers. There's no problem. Yeah, that's right. You're just trying to stress us out, it's pitiful. I couldn't bear to look at the two so sure of their victory and shook my head. Unfortunately, there's a big problem. I've informed Susan's husband about your affair. Your wife is having an affair with my husband, so I demand compensation, I told him.
What?
Susan's husband was furious, of course, at both of you. He said he's going to demand compensation from you too.
What? You've caused so much trouble. Compensation for me too.
Their expressions were a mix of anger and panic. So, I've handed over the evidence of the affair to your husband as well. Jeff and Susan turned pale. Emma looked worriedly back and forth between the two. You two are going to have a hard time, bearing the burden of two compensations.
You evil witch! Hey, Jeff, what are we going to do? I can't pay such a large sum.
Calm down, Susan. There must be some way. Does that mean I can't get new clothes? Can't go on vacation anymore? Emma complained about the potential hardship.
Shut up. That's the least of our worries right now.
Ignoring the panicked duo, I sighed. Sigh. Well, you have no choice but to work honestly and pay it off. We both have 12-year-old kids to support. With school and other expenses coming up, even if we earn money, it'll just disappear into these payments. That's your problem, not mine. It's what you deserve. What are we going to do? I only work part-time. And this is all because you boldly told her to get a divorce.
What? You're blaming me now? You were the one keeping quiet about still being married. If that hadn't happened, neither of us would be getting demanded for money by your husband. I thought it wasn't necessary to mention.
Their argument escalated into a loud quarrel, the screeching so intense that the walls of the house seemed to vibrate. Emma watched the two, looking like she was about to burst into tears at any moment. Desperate to end this hellish scene as quickly as possible, I clapped my hands to draw their attention. So, I need to revise the settlement amount for Jeff, so the lawyer will contact you again. I'll also send the divorce papers then. I expect both of you to sign quickly and send them back, Susan included. I grabbed my bag and headed for the entrance. As I attempted to leave, all three of them hurled insults at me.
You wicked woman! Old maid! Mean old witch!
I couldn't help but laugh out loud at their pitiful insults. Angered further by my laughter, they continued to berate me until the moment I closed the door. After returning to my parents' house, I quickly revised the documents and had them delivered to both through my lawyer. According to the lawyer, they were reluctant until the very end, but he eventually obtained their signatures. I was filled with gratitude for the lawyer handling the situation, as I had feared they might not sign. Since Jeff's part of the divorce papers was also included, I checked that his section was filled out and immediately submitted them to the city hall. Thus, Jeff and I officially ended our marriage of about 3 years. Relaxing at my parents' home for the first time in a while, I noticed my phone vibrating on the desk. The call was from Jeff. It was several weeks after the divorce. What could he possibly want? With a puzzled expression, I answered the phone. Hello, what do you want? It's been a long time. Have you been well? I shivered at his uncharacteristically considerate words. I rubbed my right arm with my free hand. Thanks to you. I've been feeling much better since the divorce, both physically and mentally. Is that so? Jeff seemed too deflated to retort against my sarcasm, his voice lacking strength. There were a few seconds of silence. Jeff was the one to break it. The reason I called today is because I have a favor to ask of you. A favor? Yeah, I'm getting impatient with his hesitation. Could you hurry up? I really didn't want to pick up your call. If you have something to say, go through the lawyer, remember? Sorry. The favor is, could you reduce the alimony you're demanding from Susan and me? I was stunned by his audacious request and pressed my temples with my hand. Wait, you thought I would just agree to that? It can't be helped. It's hard to talk to Susan's ex-husband about this. So he wanted to say it was unavoidable. How selfish of Jeff. Susan thought finally the three of us could live together after getting divorced from her husband. Wait a minute, what about the three of you? What happened to Susan's child? Oh, the kid went to live with her ex-husband. As if Emma had taken over a classmate's family. I felt dizzy at their selfishness, not considering the children's feelings at all. Jeff continued as if it didn't matter. I got fired from my job because somehow it got out I was using the company car to go out with Susan. That's wrongful termination, don't you think? Despite everything being his own fault, there was no sign of regret from Jeff. Is this man really in his late 30s? So, my income is zero right now, and Susan is just working a part-time job at the supermarket. We're really strapped for cash, barely managing our own lives. So please, can you reduce the amount? We really can't afford to pay it. I wonder what expression Jeff is making on the other end of the phone. I can't see it, but regardless of his face, my answer is the same. I refuse.
Why?
Jeff immediately retorts. Firstly, I dislike the idea that you're coming to me because it's difficult to talk to the other guy. And what about Susan? If she wants a reduction, she should be asking along with you. That would be the proper way to do it. That's true, but look, she's also having a tough time right now. It's not like she can handle any more stress. Not her problem? Oh, I see. With that attitude, I definitely won't reduce anything.
No, that's not what I mean. I messed up, just listen to me.
I silently listened to Jeff spilling more blunders. I don't know what's happening in this family or why they're having a hard time, but it's not my problem. Displeased with Jeff's attitude, I decided to let him in on a little secret. By the way, I was the one who reported your affair to your company.
What?
He paused after letting out that bewildered sound. Hello? Can you hear me? That explains it. What? He muttered quietly. That explains why suddenly my boss started checking the car's dashcam. You were the one who told them. Yes, that was me. A kind mom friend told me she saw you and Susan together in the car. So, I thought it was strange and hired a detective agency to investigate, and oh, did they find evidence of your affair? Photos of you taking Susan out in the company car during work hours, pretending to be attending to clients.
Damn it.
From the phone came the sound of fabric rubbing in a rhythmic pattern. Is he fidgeting? I took those photos, clearly time-stamped, to your workplace after our divorce and handed them to your boss. It was terrible because of you. I was told by higher-ups that I broke company rules and that my actions were malicious, which resulted in me getting fired. Plus, I was ostracized by everyone until I left. What a disaster. He doesn't seem to realize at all that he brought this upon himself. He seems determined to blame everything on me.
It's your fault I got fired.
I'm fed up with Jeff repeating the same excuses, and I respond more forcefully.
The real problem is that you were the one skipping work and having an affair. Even elementary school kids, if asked who's in the wrong between us, would say it's you.
Still, telling the company was a low blow. Is he trying to say that wasn't fair? But the moment I was kicked out of our home because of his affair, any notion of fair play was thrown out the window. He is still mumbling something, but then he suddenly goes silent. Could it be? He seems to have realized something. Did you, by any chance, spread the word among Emma's class parents that Susan and I were having an affair? I'm taken aback by the accusation of spreading rumors. I clarify with correction. No, that's not right. I only briefly explained the situation to that mom friend who tipped me off about your and Susan's affair, as a thank you for informing me.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. You did spread it around.
Well, now that I'm no longer Emma's mother, I have absolutely no dealings with that mom friend or anyone else from the school. I never thought about the aftermath of what I said. Because of that, Emma is being looked at with disdain in her class, seen as a thief who drove out Susan's child and took her mother. And Susan, she gets whispered about at every parent meeting. Don't you care at all? No, not really. My response must have sounded exceptionally cold-hearted to him. But honestly, I felt no pity for a child who had been verbally abusive to me from the start and the woman who took my husband, no matter what hardships they faced.
You're a heartless monster.
Like a character out of a comic book, he said in a heavy tone.
If anyone's the monster, it's you, lacking any moral compass. Shut up. Just reduce the alimony.
Jeff's demanding attitude hardly seemed like one asking for a favor, leaving me astounded, and finally, I retorted. No.
If you're any kind of parent, show your child how to work decently and pay for your mistakes.
Fooling around. I hung up the phone while he was still shouting. He called back immediately, but I didn't answer, instead sending a text message, "I will not interact with you except through a lawyer. Do not call me again." After enduring days of being oppressed by Jeff and Emma during our marriage, ending this final battle left me feeling refreshed. I put the phone back on the desk and went to the kitchen to make some tea. After failing to get the alimony reduced, Jeff scrambled to find a job. Susan also tried to negotiate with her ex-husband for a reduction, but that failed too. Then Jeff, luckily, got employed by another real estate firm in the same industry, but the word got out quickly about his affair during business hours, making his new workplace uncomfortable. I wonder how long he'll last there. Surprisingly, Jeff seems to be sticking it out for now. Probably because resigning would mean no income and an inability to pay the alimony. Both burdened with their own and each other's alimony payments, and with children to care for, their family finances must be a disaster, but I was slightly impressed by his tenacity. As for Susan, she had to leave her part-time job at the local supermarket after rumors of the affair spread, thanks to the formidable network of mom friends. It seems the mom friends network is quite terrifying. Susan will likely struggle to find work locally again. She will be stigmatized as the woman who went after a child's father. Now that Jeff has become the sole breadwinner for that family, I wonder what will become of them. Whether they find happiness or face misfortune, it has nothing to do with me.
Thinking this, I quietly sipped my warm tea.
My brother is a gangster, you know. A punk picking a fight threatens my husband by hinting at the existence of his gangster brother. Yet, my husband retorts with a calm demeanor. Angered by this, the punk douses my husband with whiskey. So much for our restaurant date. I stayed quiet because I didn't want to get involved, but I can't overlook my husband being ridiculed like this. The punk will end up regretting his actions, and not even crying and apologizing will be enough to be forgiven. My name is Sarah. This year, I married Roy, whom I've been dating for 3 years, and we've been enjoying a blissful newlywed life. Roy is my pride and joy. With his well-defined features, a height of 6 feet 2 inches, long limbs, he's what you'd call a head-turner. But Roy's appeal isn't just skin-deep. He understands me better than anyone else, took on the role of a homemaker to support my busy work life, and manages everything at home. And, above all, he's incredibly kind. He always puts me first. Roy truly is my pride and joy, and I believe there's no better husband out there. Roy says the same about me.
There's no better wife out there.
It might sound like we're just showing off to others, but we are a couple who truly respect and cherish each other. I was happy to share meals every day with my kind-hearted husband. I thought I might cause him trouble by marrying him, but I've decided to walk through life together with him. To support me, Roy quit his job and dedicated himself to being a homemaker. He never complains and always supports my career. And when I come home, he greets me with a warm smile. Roy is my rock. And I always want to be there for him, too. Even when I come home late, he's prepared dinner and waited for me. His cooking, which he initially struggled with, has improved so much that he could open his own restaurant. Just hearing him say welcome home and imagining him cooking for me fills me with joy and love. Roy, thank you for today. You've become too good at cooking. It's delicious.
I wasn't great at it at first, but I've come to enjoy it. I think I'm better suited to this than typing away at a computer at work. It's fun thinking about what to make every day so you can have a good day. That makes me happy, thank you. But isn't it hard waiting for me to come home late every day? You can go to sleep first if you want.
It's okay. I want to eat with you. It's lonely eating alone. I miss seeing your face. I feel the same way. I'll try to finish work earlier and come home as soon as I can. Thank you for everything. Saying this, enjoying Roy's homemade meals was my happiness. But I worry he might be overextending himself, so when I say he can go to sleep first, I mean it. Even so, I know he waits up for me. Thinking this, I enjoy the macarons he prepared for dessert and the warm tea he made.
Did you make these macarons yourself?
Yes. Pretty cool, right? Surprisingly easy. Baking is fun too. I feel like I've discovered a new talent. Laughing as he swiftly cleans up, Roy is the epitome of a homemaker. And then, I take a bath he prepared, and get into the neatly made bed. He does the housework perfectly, even though I tell him it's okay to slack off sometimes. He never shows tiredness and always takes care of me. Thanks to Roy, even if I come home late from work, I can sleep well and recover. I feel refreshed in the morning, all thanks to Roy. I'm truly grateful. I work hard, hoping to continue this happy life with Roy forever. When I wake up in the morning, the living room downstairs already smells of coffee. On the table, there's fried eggs, sausage, salad, soup, and perfectly toasted bread. The country-style breakfast I requested. Roy greets me with a fresh smile in the morning.
Good morning. Did you sleep well? I did, thank you. I appreciate you making breakfast every morning, but isn't it hard on you? Did you sleep well? You should take it easy and sleep in sometimes, you know?
It's fine. I'm just doing it because I enjoy it. Come on, eat up. I put lots of veggies in the soup, so it's packed with nutrients. Saying that, we sit down and eat breakfast together. I wonder if there's something I can do for Roy, who always works so hard for us. While sipping my soup, I think it over. Come to think of it, we haven't had the chance to enjoy a leisurely meal out together recently because of our busy schedules. Hey, Roy. How about we go on a date this Saturday? It's been a while. Let's go to that place we used to love. That place is a restaurant, and has been our go-to even before we got married. It's a cozy restaurant that's not too pricey or pretentious, where we can relax and enjoy ourselves. Roy has always loved the meal there. That sounds great, I'd love to go. But are you sure about work? You're not pushing yourself too hard? I want to go out with you too. Work's fine, I can make adjustments. Hearing that, Roy's face lit up with a childlike smile, making me look forward to Saturday even more. And then, on the promised Saturday, I managed to finish work early and got home by 5 p.m.
You're early. I'm just getting ready, so wait a bit for me.
I was so excited, I powered through my work this morning. Our reservation isn't until 7 p.m., so take your time getting ready. I relax in the living room, waiting for Roy to finish preparing.
It's been a while since I've done my hair. Kinda nervous.
It really has been a long time since we've gone out together. I'm sorry for always being so busy. Today, you can eat as much as you like. Really? Awesome. I've already decided what I'm gonna order. Can't wait. Despite his playful words, Roy, dressed in his stylish outfit for going out and with his hair perfectly done, looked so handsome and mature it even made me, his wife, swoon a little.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Shall we go?
Since we still had time before our reservation, we decided to take a walk near the restaurant, enjoying the beautiful night scenery at a popular date spot. It's really been a while since we've had the chance to just go out like this, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm really sorry for always being so busy.
Sarah, you apologize too much. I know you're working hard, and I want to support you.
Thanks, Roy. But still, it's nice to go on a date like this once in a while. Yeah, it is.
We shared laughs and conversations, enjoying the freshness of our rare date night. While it's always fun spending time at home together, stepping out for a date felt exciting and refreshing. As the time for our dinner reservation approached, we headed to the restaurant. "We have a reservation." As soon as we opened the door to the restaurant, we were greeted by loud voices and crude laughter.
"That's hilarious."
"You're crazy, man." Though this place is known for its down-to-earth atmosphere, we'd never encountered such rowdy customers before. While curious, I hoped to avoid any trouble and took a seat without paying them much attention.
"Hey! Where's my drink? I ordered more."
"Sorry, please give us a moment."
"We've been waiting. Hurry it up."
Their rude behavior was unmistakable. It seemed the noise was coming from a group of punks. 3 young men with flashy hairstyles and visible tattoos were drawing attention to themselves. I observed discreetly, hoping to avoid any involvement.
"Hey, waiter! Hurry up with our order. We're short-tempered. It's scary when we have to wait."
Though already displeased by their behavior, I tried not to let it ruin our special date. Roy seemed unfazed, his eyes sparkling as he examined the menu posted on the wall. "What should we start with?" Just as Roy was about to catch the waiter's attention, one of the punks caught his eye.
"Hey, you! You just made eye contact with me, didn't you? Hey, are you disrespecting me?"
It was the worst possible turn of events. It seemed the punks had been drinking heavily and now decided to pick a fight with Roy. However, Roy ignored them and tried to call over the waiter. "Excuse me, we'd like to order, please." Their frustration with Roy's disregard only seemed to escalate as the punks stood up and approached us, encircling our table.
"Hey! I'm talking to you. Are you deaf? You made eye contact with me, didn't you? Are you mocking me?"
Dealing with uneducated, rule-breaking punks is truly tiresome. While I silently wished for no escalation, Roy calmly addressed them.
"I was just trying to place an order with the waiter."
"What's the issue?"
"What's the issue? You made eye contact with me."
"I think you're mistaken." Roy continued to look at the menu on the wall, ignoring their provocations. Their irritation grew as they refused to leave our table.
"You're trying to act tough in front of your lady?
Please lower your voice.
You're bothering the other customers."
Roy spoke firmly, showing no sign of fear. This only angered the punks more. One of them blurted out,
"Hey! Who do you think you're talking to like that? Acting all high and mighty, you idiot. My brother's a gangster, you know. Saying my brother's a gangster means I'm invincible. Mess with me, and you might just end up at the bottom of the ocean."
In my mind, I thought, the idiot here is you, but I didn't want to escalate the situation, so I kept quiet and just watched how things unfolded. Roy let out a sigh of frustration.
"What? What's with that attitude? Are you disrespecting me? Your brother's a gangster?
So what?
Sure, your brother might be a gangster and that's scary, but what about you? Aren't you embarrassed? Causing a scene in the restaurant, making baseless accusations, and then hiding behind your brother. Is that supposed to intimidate me?
I'm talking to you right now.
Your brother being a gangster doesn't scare me."
The atmosphere froze for a moment. Everyone in the restaurant, including other customers and the staff, had their eyes glued on us. And, as expected, the punk got furious. His face turned red as he grabbed Roy by the collar, looking like he was about to punch him.
"Hey! Apologize for what you just said. Apologize now, and I might forgive you. Hurry up!"
The punk shouted at Roy. However, Roy remained calm and unafraid, replying smoothly.
"Resorting to violence just because you can't respond? That's not okay. It just shows you're not smart. We're here to eat, so could you please go somewhere else?"
In that moment, the infuriated punk released Roy's collar and doused him with whiskey from a nearby bottle.
"Watch it! Don't get cocky. I don't care what happens to you. I'll tell my gangster brother about this. Even the girl you're with will suffer, you hear?"
The punk glared at Roy, his face red with anger, as he threatened us. He seemed desperate to make Roy apologize, despite Roy's calm demeanor. But Roy wasn't fazed at all. "Oh, it is so sticky. I was wearing my favorite clothes and now they're soaked." I couldn't stay silent any longer and stood up after passing a handkerchief to Roy. "Hey, what's your name? Which group does your brother belong to? Why don't you call him over now?" "What? You lost your mind? What are you gonna do with my name?" "Well, might as well. My brother is a well-known gangster around here. You'd be scared if you knew his name. He's Bob. You know him, right?" "I've never heard of him." "Well, go ahead, call your brother." "What? Are you stupid? Call your gangster brother now." I was suddenly firm in my tone, which took the punk by surprise, quieting him down for a moment. But soon, he snapped, "You're crazy." "Fine, I'll call him. But even if you two start crying and apologizing later, it's too late for forgiveness. Just try to act tough." Truly an uneducated fool. What was supposed to be a pleasant date was ruined because of these idiots. And to think they dared to insult and pour whiskey on my dear husband was unforgivable. Don't think you can run away scared. You're not getting away. The punk kept provoking us. "You really have no class, it's embarrassing. If you hadn't poured whiskey on my husband and just left quietly, none of this would have happened." "What? Shut up. You're only brave for now. Soon, you'll be crying, begging for mercy, saying please and sorry, idiot." I was thoroughly convinced the idiot was him, but I was too disgusted to say anything. Meanwhile, as we waited for the punk's brother, I also made a phone call. "Hello, it's me." "Yeah, I think you know what's going on." "Hey, don't you dare make a phone call without permission." "Yeah, you heard? Well, it can't be helped." "All right, I'll be waiting." After hanging up and a few minutes passed, the brother arrived at the restaurant, panting heavily as if he had run here. "Hey! Over here. Listen, these guys were totally disrespecting us. You gotta beat them up for me." The punk reported to his brother with a smug smile. However, as the brother approached, his expression turned fierce and he suddenly punched the punk. The punk, not expecting to be hit by his own brother, was completely unguarded and got knocked down, causing chairs to topple and bottles to shatter on the floor. Concerned about causing trouble for the restaurant, I apologized to the other customers and went to the staff. "I'm really sorry for causing such a commotion. Please keep the change," I said as I handed over all the cash I had. "Let's talk outside." Following my lead, the punks were dragged out by the gangster brother. Once we were in a more secluded area, the brother finally spoke. "I'm very sorry for what happened." The punk, who had bragged about his gangster brother, was completely lost, not understanding what was happening as his brother apologized. "I can't stand idiots without manners. I'm truly sorry. Hey, you guys! What are you standing around for? Don't you realize the situation you're in? What's gotten into you? We don't need to care about these people." The punks were clearly confused by the unexpected turn of events. They couldn't understand why they, protected by Bob's brother, had to apologize after insulting and being rude to my dear husband, and even pouring whiskey on him. I decided to enlighten the punks about the reality of the situation. "The gangster brother you were relying on is actually my subordinate. Get it? He's part of my crew. I'm the boss here. Tough luck, huh? If you had a bit more discernment, you wouldn't have ended up in this mess." Dousing my husband with sake was definitely not okay. Yes, the gangster Bob, whom the punk was counting on, had sworn loyalty to me. "Hey! You! You poured sake on the boss's husband? Are you out of your mind? Didn't I tell you not to cause any trouble?" "No, I didn't know." The punk, who had been barking loudly until now, suddenly became as meek as a puppy. "Not knowing isn't an excuse. Just apologize already." "I'm sorry." "Speak up." "Well, never mind. Let's take this slow and talk it out at the office. Hearing this, the punk froze. Then, from a black van parked nearby, Bob's underlings started to disembark.
Teach these punks some manners,
I said, and the underlings efficiently shoved the punks into the car, leaving Bob's brother behind. Bob had requested to deal with his brother personally. Bob's brother was pale, finally realizing the gravity of his situation.
Boss, I am truly sorry. I will take full responsibility for this. Well, that's all well and good, but could you first have this punk's brother apologize properly to my husband? Have you not even apologized yet? Apologize now.
Bob barked at his brother, who then turned to my husband, gave a slight bow, and said, "I'm sorry." Hearing this, my husband smiled. Seeing my husband's forgiving expression seemed to reassure Bob's brother, thinking he was forgiven. But then my husband said with a smile, "You call that an apology? You shouldn't take the adult world lightly." Suddenly, Bob's brother's face went pale, crying and begging for forgiveness.
I'm so sorry. I won't ever do something like that again. Please forgive me. I'll pay for the damage. I'm truly sorry.
Apologies need to come from the heart to mean anything, you know? Well, I'm fine now.
The rest is up to my wife and Bob.
Roy stepped back, letting Bob take over.
Idiot. Haven't I always told you? Your behavior would bring disaster one day. I've cleaned up your messes before, but this time, there's nothing I can do. I can't forgive you either. The world of gangsters isn't as forgiving as you think. Don't just use my name without understanding the consequences of your actions.
Bob was absolutely right.
What should I do now?
His brother seemed suddenly scared after hearing Bob's words. Bob had already decided on how to handle his brother's situation.
Really? You're okay with this?
Yes, I've been prepared for this ever since I joined this world. I'm not the type to run away from something like this. I'm truly sorry. This is the result of me being too lenient with you.
I'm fine, really. I wasn't harmed. But I can't overlook you pouring on my husband.
Bob then dragged his brother into the car and drove off.
The world of gangsterism is harsh, huh? Bob, despite everything, really cared for his brother. Makes me feel a bit guilty too. Our world is all about loyalty and strict discipline. Well, it was Bob's decision, so let's just watch over them. It's strange, events like these remind me of the past.
My parents were heads of a gangster family, a legacy that goes back generations. Being the only daughter of such a family, I grew up isolated. Rumors spread quickly at school and in college. Just one person knowing about me was enough to spread gossip. I considered joining a regular company after graduation, but knew it would be difficult if my background was investigated. I struggled with my future, feeling the pressure to continue my family's legacy, but also desiring a normal life. Eventually, I chose to live as a gangster, a world that valued loyalty and human bonds, which suited my personality despite the loneliness. People around me were always cautious, and I couldn't find friends whom I could truly trust. Despite being surrounded by many gangster associates, there was no one who really understood me. I felt profoundly lonely. Roy, my husband, changed that. We met when I was a fresh face in the world, and he stood up to punks despite being outnumbered. Since that time, Roy seemed to have a strong sense of justice, defending someone from punks, which apparently made him a target himself. I helped him. At that time, Roy didn't seem to think I was involved with the gangster. After all, it's not every day that an ordinary woman chases away 5 punks.
Thank you so much. You really saved me. You're very strong.
What a cool woman. Despite not knowing my background, he thanked me.
Are you hungry?
If it's okay, I'd like to treat you to a meal. He even invited me for a meal as thanks. Our relationship grew from there. And though I feared telling him about my background, fearing it would end our relationship, his understanding and acceptance only deepened our bond. But I was scared. There had been many people who suddenly changed their attitude or drifted away once they found out I was associated with the gangster. I feared that revealing my true identity would end our relationship. Despite these fears, I continued to date Roy. However, one day, while we were together, a greeting from one of my underlings inadvertently revealed my identity.
Boss? My parents were gangster leaders, and I've always lived in that shadow, afraid of being rejected for it. I had a hunch about it pretty early on. You sometimes looked troubled, and I thought it must be hard for you, having to keep something from me. I'm sorry for putting you through that. Having lost my parents when I was young, I'm quite sensitive to feelings of loneliness and isolation. I couldn't ignore it, I could see those same feelings in you. Roy.
Meeting Roy made me feel understood for the first time, and that was a joy. Yet, being part of the gangster is different from ordinary life. And the thought of potentially causing him trouble someday made me a bit afraid.
Roy, you're truly amazing and kind. But being with me might bring you inconvenience, so maybe.
I found myself at a loss for words.
Are you suggesting we should break up? I don't want that. I know all the good in you, and being gangster doesn't change who you are. You're you. You've probably had a hard time being the daughter of a gangster, right? You don't have to bear it alone anymore. I'm here for you,
Roy said, hugging me gently with a reassuring smile.
I have no parents, no close relatives. You're all I have, Sarah. I want to be with you.
At that moment, I vowed to spend my life with Roy, to cherish him forever. Yet, now I've dragged him into this situation. And I felt down. Even if Roy seemed calm when confronted by the punks, he might have been scared deep down. If only I had acted sooner. He might now be afraid of me, thinking he doesn't want a gangster partner.
Sarah, are you worrying unnecessarily? I'm sorry for involving you in this. I was afraid it might scare you away. Sarah, are you worrying about things that aren't even an issue? Do you think I can read minds? But seriously, if anything, I trust you more. Having you by my side, there's nothing to fear. And hey, I'm a man too. I've decided to protect you if the need arises.
Roy's words reinforced my belief that I had chosen the best partner. Someone who truly understands and supports me, even amidst the complexities of my life and background. It's clear that protecting those important to us is paramount. It's my responsibility to ensure no one is left alone. That thought solidified in my mind as we moved on from the incident. I'm hungry, we didn't get to eat. Yeah, let's try another place. And with that, we began walking, ready to move forward together. I'm remarrying a new wife. You're no longer needed. Following that, my mother-in-law also said something terrible. A useless person should just get divorced and leave. Upon joining us, my father-in-law seemed to understand the situation and yelled, "A wife who can't bear children doesn't belong in our family. Just divorce Roy quickly and let him marry Hannah." Being told such unreasonable things, I just stood there in silence. It was the first time in my life that I was made to feel so miserable. But at the same time, my resolve became unshakable. The time had come for me to raise the signal to counterattack. Seeing my expression, everyone but my sister-in-law froze. They probably thought I was hurt and about to cry, looking down on me like that. Defying their expectations, I said with a broad smile, "I'm already divorced, you know? And that woman." Hearing my words, my in-laws and Roy gasped in astonishment, uttering a pitiful "huh?" The betrayers were shaking upon discovering the shocking truth. My name is Emily, and I'm a 31-year-old part-time. I married Roy 3 years ago, but we don't have any children yet. When we got married at 28, I was working full-time, and continuing to work would have guaranteed a solid career. That's why I wanted to build my career until I turned 30, then have a child and return to work more easily once childcare became manageable. Roy understood that, and we agreed to start trying for a baby after I turned 30. So, when I turned 30 and was about to start trying in earnest, I went for a checkup just in case, as a friend who was also trying was struggling with infertility. The result was that I found out I have a condition that makes it difficult to conceive, and I decided to switch to part-time work to focus on fertility treatments. Roy works at a real estate company, and we can live comfortably on his salary alone. We were also able to save a little every month, so he was okay with me working part-time. But that's when the nightmare began. Once it became clear I had fertility issues and switched to part-time, Roy's attitude changed drastically. He used to be kind, but suddenly he said, "I'm full-time, you're part-time, so you should take care of everything at home. If I don't earn money, we can't even afford fertility treatments, let alone live. You need to perfectly manage the household to avoid stressing me out." I was good at household chores since I lived alone, so it wasn't too painful. But Roy started to nitpick everything. If the room was a bit messy, he'd say, "You're lazy. What kind of housewife leaves the room this dirty?" And if the dishes weren't washed right after a meal, he'd say, "A woman who puts off even this isn't cut out for a family. Then work more and earn. There are remote jobs and such hiring, right? Well, you're still in charge of all the household chores since you're part-time and I'm full-time." I had just found out about my infertility, so I was feeling down, thinking it was somehow my fault despite Roy being fine. So I wanted to create a relaxing space at home for Roy, who was tired from work, and tried to meet his expectations. Looking back, I realize Roy was just taking advantage of my weakened state. At that time, I convinced myself to endure until I got pregnant, suppressing my feelings. I thought Roy would return to his kind self once we had a child. Hoping for a sliver of hope, I continued with fertility treatments while managing part-time work and household chores. But the strain took its toll, my health deteriorated, fertility treatments weren't going well, and the gap between us grew. Gradually, I couldn't keep up with the housework, my feelings were a mess, and I became more emotional. Roy then said, "You can't even get pregnant and act all high and mighty. If you don't want to be divorced, listen to me." From that day, he clearly looked down on me. He said I was acting all high and mighty just because I asked him to put his socks in the laundry basket instead of leaving them around, and he yelled, "Shut up." So, I spoke up a bit more firmly. Being looked down upon like this made me feel miserable, and I didn't even know what to do anymore. And Roy began to treat me not as his wife but as a convenient woman or a servant, and my heart grew more and more troubled. A year passed in this way. Ultimately, we didn't have a child, and the gap between me and Roy remained. Switching to part-time work and starting infertility treatments, this past year has flown by in a flash. Yet, it's also been the most challenging and painful period of my life. But recently, there's been a change. Roy suddenly started being nice. Not just a little, it was a significant change. It was as if he had become a completely different person, showing more concern for me than ever before. For example, in a month when the infertility treatment didn't work and I was feeling down, he said, "You okay? How about I make dinner tonight? I can whip up your favorite beef stew." I was half touched, half suspicious. After all the times he'd looked down on me, to see such a drastic shift in behavior made me wonder if there was a catch. So, I asked Roy, "What's up? Anything good happened recently?" He relaxed his face and said, "Yeah, work's been going great. I got selected to be part of a big project. But it means I'll have to do more entertaining and weekend golf, so I might be away from home more." Up to this point, it was all good. My physical burden had lessened, and if Roy's work was going well, it meant our future was secure. If I just accepted Roy's kindness without question, there'd be no trouble. But there was one thing that bothered me. Lately, Roy had become keen on knowing my every move, so I asked him, "Hey, what's going on? You used to not care at all about where I was or what I was doing." Suddenly, Roy burst into anger. "What's wrong with wanting to know what my wife is up to? Emily, are you doing something behind my back that you can't tell me?" From my perspective, it was bizarre for Roy to yell over something so trivial. It seemed more like he was hiding something from me and was being overly nice to cover it up. A friend who had recently divorced told me how her husband started acting nicer just before his affair came out. That's why I started suspecting Roy of having an affair and began to closely monitor his movements as much as he did mine. Then I noticed a pattern. Roy would only go out on Tuesdays, and every second Sunday, he went golfing. On days other than those, if I asked casually where he went, he'd answer normally. But on those specific days, if I asked, he'd snap, "Geez, stop nagging me. It's annoying, you know." It was all too suspicious. I grew more convinced that Roy might be cheating and decided it was time to take serious action. A few weeks later, worn out from the ongoing covert battle with Roy, I needed a break and went on a little trip. It was about a 20-minute drive from our home, but I'd been wanting to check out this cafe that had just opened. I'd heard there might be a line, but I didn't mind waiting, so I went alone and waited for my turn. That's when I ran into my sister-in-law. She's 2 years younger than me, 29, works as a kindergarten teacher, and is bright and kind. She looks up to me like a real sister, and I dote on her like she's my actual sister. When I called out to her, she looked startled and scanned me from head to toe. She usually wouldn't do something like that, so her strange behavior had me tilting my head. "What's up?" At my voice, she blinked rapidly as if snapping out of it and, after a moment of silence, returned to her usual cheerful self. "Let's have lunch together," she suggested, so we changed the reservation to 2 people and sat down together after waiting for a bit. Over lunch, she told me a shocking fact that left me speechless, unable to even eat. After lunch, though originally planning to go home, I changed my plans. I decided to go to my in-laws' house with my sister-in-law. Their house is about a 30-minute drive from our apartment, a place I usually don't stop by. My in-laws aren't exactly fond of me, or rather, they don't like me much, so apart from Christmas, we don't see each other, making this visit quite rare. From the cafe, it's just over a 10-minute drive to their house. My sister-in-law lives alone and usually contacts her mom when she's coming home. But today we decided to go without notifying her. Today is the second Sunday. Roy was supposed to be at his usual business golf, but for some reason, when we arrived at my in-laws' house, Roy's car was parked there. My sister-in-law unlocked the door for us, and we entered. Immediately, my mother-in-law appeared and asked, without hiding her displeasure, "Oh, why is Emily here?" Just the fact that a daughter-in-law stopped by warranted this attitude. I barely managed to suppress a sigh. Then, from deeper inside the house, I heard voices of a man and a woman, and Roy and a woman popped out. Roy momentarily grimaced, but the woman smiled brightly and said, "Nice to meet you. I'm Hannah, and I'll be Roy's wife from now on." While I was stunned, my sister-in-law, with a furious look, confronted Roy and the others, demanding, "Hey, what's this all about? Explain yourselves." Roy sighed deeply. Then, looking at me with a disdainful expression, he dropped a bombshell. "I'm remarrying a new wife. You're no longer needed." Following that, my mother-in-law also said, "A useless person should just get divorced and leave," hurling awful words at me. Strangely, while I managed to stay calm and rational, my sister-in-law, trembling with either anger or sorrow, gave me a look of sympathy. Meanwhile, Roy, Hannah, and my mother-in-law looked down on me with a smug attitude, showing no remorse. Then my father-in-law, attracted by the noise, came in and immediately understood the situation, yelling, "A barren wife doesn't belong in this family. Hurry up and divorce Roy and let him marry Hannah." "Dad," my sister-in-law shouted, trying to stop him, but I slowly raised my head. And that's when I signaled my counterattack. Seeing my expression, everyone but my sister-in-law froze. They probably thought I was hurt, about to cry from being looked down upon like this. Defying their expectations, I smiled broadly and said, "I'm already divorced, though. And about that woman." The implications of my words, especially the fact that I mentioned I was already divorced, left Roy and my in-laws stunned, only able to utter a pathetic "huh?" I wanted to expose Hannah's true identity right then and there. But instead, I sighed and said, "Roy, do you remember the fuss a while ago? When you threatened to divorce me and prepared the divorce papers. Those papers were signed, so I did my part. We're not husband and wife anymore, without needing to be told." Roy, reminded of that incident, lost his earlier composure. Instead, he began looking around frantically, his unease palpable. A few days ago, Roy and I had a fight, and in a fit of rage, he signed the divorce papers and threatened me. The cause of the argument was trivial. I had simply asked him again where he goes every second Sunday. He always evaded the question, and I thought it was about time to get a straight answer. Roy, turning red, shouted in what's become a standard response, "You always ask that. Are you trying to control me? I'm not having it." I was merely asking where he was going, but his extreme reaction to my question about the second Sunday was absurd. Still, Roy kept ranting and stormed out of the house. I wondered where he had gone off to when he returned a while later with the divorce papers. He filled in his section in front of me, then pushed the papers at me, saying, "I can divorce you anytime I want." When I asked him if he really intended to divorce, he nodded emphatically. So, I secretly filled in my section too and kept the papers in my bag, ready to submit at any time. In a way, it was like a talisman. If anything happened, I could use these papers to dissolve our marital relationship, a magic piece of paper. And today, after running into my sister-in-law and hearing a shocking story, reaching my breaking point, I submitted the divorce papers before heading to my in-laws' house. Hearing this, Roy argued, "That was just a threat, I didn't mean it." But my sister-in-law retorted, "You signed it yourself saying you could divorce any time. That clearly shows intent," leaving him speechless again. Sarcastically, I said to Roy, "So, our marriage is pretty much in ruins. Happy now?" Roy was about to say something when his mother interjected with a smug look, "Oh, is that so? Well, we were expecting you to divorce anyway, so that's fine by us." It seemed like Roy's father shared the same sentiment, nodding in agreement. To my in-laws, my divorce from Roy was inevitable, so to them, it was more of a relief than anything else. Hannah, standing next to Roy with an annoying grin, seemed pleased with herself. Noticing this, Roy chuckled smugly, "Yeah, that means I can start my life with Hannah, the first step to our future together." It was disgusting. My sister-in-law looked frustrated, as if embarrassed by these four. To me, these clueless family members and Hannah were just too foolish to take seriously. Ignoring their triumphant looks, I pulled out my phone. Then, I showed Roy and the others a photo that clearly depicted Roy and Hannah in a compromising situation. Time-stamped and location tagged. I said to Roy, "I didn't file for divorce on a whim. I've been compiling evidence of your affair from the start," I declared, watching Roy swallow hard. Glancing at him, I added that I intended to demand alimony, right when Hannah burst into laughter. Frowning at Hannah, she blurted out, "So, you've been investigating me too? About that woman, guess you figured it out. I was gonna reveal that I'm pregnant." Too bad, Roy and his parents already knew and even let me stay here on purpose. My sister-in-law was shocked. When we met at the cafe, she had already been informed by Roy and my in-laws that we had divorced. The reason they gave her was shocking. They claimed I was terminally ill and had decided to break up with Roy, who had supposedly made a tearful decision. Roy had told his sister a lie about breaking up due to a fake illness. Hearing this story, I was appalled. According to my sister-in-law, Roy had cautioned her. "Emily is despairing over her life now. So, please don't contact her and accidentally upset her." Hence, my sister-in-law avoided reaching out to me, thinking it was for my own good. But upon returning home, she was surprised to find a strange woman living there, introduced as Roy's new wife by my in-laws. She had realized she'd been deceived all along. But hearing about Hannah's pregnancy was new to her. As Hannah gloated, I burst into laughter. Then turned to her. "Of course, the detective caught that you're pregnant. But I brought something even more interesting since it's unlikely that Roy and his parents wouldn't know." The atmosphere tensed. Everyone held their breath. wondering what bombshell I would drop next. And the moment I opened my mouth, the silence was broken, and the situation drastically changed.
And what I wanted to say is, Hannah is pregnant with another man's child, not Roy's.
Hannah's face paled, and Roy was speechless, while his parents slowly turned their gaze towards her. I had spared no expense on a detective to gather irrefutable evidence and information beneficial to me post-divorce. I had requested detailed investigation reports and evidence, including photos with date and time stamps. By the time of our divorce fiasco, I already had enough evidence to confront Roy. The reason Roy only left on Tuesdays and every second Sunday was because those were Hannah's days off from work. Roy inadvertently dug his own grave by filling out the divorce papers, making it a windfall for me. I could have cornered Roy with the evidence I had, but I thought it was too soon. That's because the detective had mentioned that Hannah, Roy's affair partner, seemed to have a dark shadow hanging over her. So, I decided to request a more detailed investigation into Hannah. It turned out Hannah was pregnant, and Roy was aware of it. This was somewhat expected. However, Hannah insisted on going to the doctor alone, stubbornly refusing to take Roy with her. It seemed Roy thought nothing of it. But Hannah had a clear intention to keep another man from suspecting anything. In reality, Hannah was involved with another man, a married man with children, and the child she was carrying was undoubtedly his. The married man, unable to leave his family for Hannah, had agreed to cut ties by paying all expenses related to the pregnancy and a lump sum for child support upon Hannah's request. The agreement was to settle their relationship by paying child support if a test after the child's birth confirmed his paternity. Therefore, it appears that this man was always accompanying Hannah to her doctor appointments, leaving no opportunity for Roy to join. Roy, unknowingly, had dug his own grave by signing the divorce papers, making my case even stronger. I had collected evidence of Hannah entering the maternity clinic with another man and even secured audio recordings, presenting all the proof to them then and there. As Hannah grew visibly distressed, Roy exploded in anger. "You deceived me?" Me, while his parents echoed his outrage. Feeling it was too harsh to gang up on a pregnant woman, I exclaimed, "Enough. This is shameful. You're all in the wrong here. Roy for cheating, his parents for condoning it, and Hannah for planning to use Roy as a fallback. Your actions are nothing but a petty quarrel." Silenced by my outburst, everyone was left speechless. Now that things have come this far, there's no turning back. I've made up my mind. After discovering Hannah's shocking hidden side, there's no way these people could live together anymore. But what I couldn't forgive was Roy. How he bad-mouthed and looked down on me while I quit my job to focus on fertility treatments, and how he suddenly started being nice to avoid suspicion the moment he started his affair.
I've divorced Roy, and I will make sure you all pay me alimony. Hannah, you'll be raising 2 children on your own now, but since you're the one who did this, you better take full responsibility.
After saying that casually, Hannah turned pale and exclaimed in shock, "You knew about my other child? How? Where did you?" To make it clear for Roy and his bewildered in-laws, I started to explain.
Hannah has been letting her parents raise her child. She claims to be providing financially, but with another child on the way, things will change. Her parents are getting older, and it seems she's been looking for a new ATM to help with child rearing. I have evidence of her saying this to her friends with a laugh.
Realizing that ATM implicitly referred to him, Roy looked hurt. But he had no right to feel that way. The in-laws were flustered, and in a panic, my mother-in-law dropped her previous confident demeanor, saying, "So, Hannah's child isn't our grandchild? Then there's no reason to keep her in this house. Leave right now." Conveniently switching her stance, Hannah, in a panic, tried to defend herself. "No, it is Roy's child. Please believe me." But my sister-in-law finally spoke up. "Do you really think saying that now will make anyone believe you? Hannah, do you not realize the mess you've made of people's lives?" And with that, Hannah fell silent. Then, my sister-in-law dropped a bombshell.
"Aren't you the mother of a boy who goes to the daycare where I work?" The one always brought in by his elderly grandparents. His name wouldn't happen to be Henry, would it?
Hannah's eyes widened. She opened her mouth to respond but ended up closing it without saying anything. Her silence affirmed my sister-in-law's question. Shocked, my mother-in-law collapsed on the spot, and my father-in-law looked back and forth between us, panicking. It seemed like the right moment. I presented Roy with an ultrasound image, saying,
"Thanks to the fertility treatments, I successfully got pregnant with your child. I was about to tell you after dealing with the morning sickness, but then your affair became undeniable. This child is undoubtedly yours. We won't be living together, but expect to pay child support."
Roy looked devastated, but my audacious mother-in-law chimed in, "If there's a child, then she still has the right to be a wife." "I'm sorry, we were just misled by this woman. Please, Emily, come back to us." Ignoring her, I turned to leave the house. As my mother-in-law called out to me repeatedly, I turned back once and said,
"What are you doing? You never liked me from the start, and once you found out Hannah was pregnant with your son's child, what action did you take? You're beyond brazen."
Taken aback by my confrontation, my mother-in-law lowered her head again. My father-in-law, perhaps realizing their folly, said nothing more. After all, they discarded me just as I no longer needed to acknowledge them as family. Stepping outside, my sister-in-law repeatedly apologized, asking if there was anything she could do. I said, "Just make sure they don't get away with this. From now on, I'll be handling things through a lawyer with Roy. And from now on, let's not be sister-in-law and sister-in-law but friends instead." Surprised, my sister-in-law nodded and said, "Let's get through this together." Following that, I hired a lawyer and demanded alimony. They pleaded inability to pay the substantial amount I demanded, but after I threatened legal action and assured them of my relentlessness, they reluctantly agreed. Hannah's affair with the married man came to light, leading to a confrontation and eventually reaching his wife's ears, causing an uproar. Consequently, overwhelmed by our demands, Hannah turned to her parents, who, after scolding her, came to us to apologize and settled the amount in full. Hannah desperately turned to her parents' home for help. Naturally, she was severely scolded by her parents, who then dragged her to our place to apologize. After giving birth, Hannah will have no choice but to work from dawn till dusk, making it impossible for her to indulge in affairs ever again. Despite being incredibly irresponsible, given she has children, Hannah is now under the strict financial control of her parents, unable to find any release for her stress. Having lived selfishly until now, I hope she lives for her children from here on out. On the other hand, Roy faced a disastrous fate as well. While it was good he paid me the alimony, he had to sell the family home to come up with the money. Now, he and his parents are huddled together, living in a cramped, run-down apartment. Although I agreed to allow him to pay child support in installments, as expected, there were defaults. He probably thought a little delay would be fine, based on whatever he read online. I had warned I would be relentless. I promptly took legal action for enforcement. This resulted in his company being notified, revealing his divorce and child support delinquency. His reasons for leaving work on time to spend time with Hannah while his wife was undergoing fertility treatments were also exposed, subjecting him to scorn. Eventually, he quit his job and took on debt to pay me the child support I demanded. Now, Roy is trapped in a lifetime of debt hell, with his parents also collapsing alongside him. Roy works solely for debt repayment, and his parents can no longer enjoy a graceful retirement but must return to work. Their irresponsible blaming of each other led to daily disputes, so much so that the police were called for disturbing the peace. Now, they seem to be working quietly to manage the debt, complaining all the while. Afterwards, I moved back in with my parents, apologizing and living with them for a while. Thanks to my parents' support post-delivery, things eventually got better, and my former employer even offered me my job back as a full-time employee. I also arranged for my daughter to be taken care of at the daycare where my sister-in-law works, which was a relief. Now, living away from my parents, I'm a mother raising my daughter alone, but I'm managing well thanks to the support and kind words from those around me. I've decided to cherish these invaluable connections and raise my precious daughter to be a fine person.
Aren't you eating?
I asked casually, and John looked down as if he were panicking. This place isn't exactly kid-friendly, after all. Everything Ken ordered seemed to be the kind of thing adults would enjoy.
You must be hungry, huh? Let's grab something to eat on the way home.
John nodded slightly at my words. During the checkout, the waitress chuckled as she looked at John.
Not doing it today, huh? You usually do.
This? She repeated a motion with her hand, flipping it from paper to rock several times. When I turned to look at John, he was trembling, holding his head.
What's wrong, John? You look pale, are you okay?
I was startled into silence.
Hey, Anna!
He looked up at me fearfully, and as I hugged him, I quickly grabbed our things and stood up.
Let's go, John.
And with that, we hurried out of the place. My name is Anna Turner, and I'm a 33-year-old working at an advertising agency. It's been 11 years since I graduated from college and joined this company. I've gotten used to the work over the years, and I've started to find it fulfilling. Though the job is busy, my income has increased accordingly. I think I'm doing better than others my age. Being in a male-dominated environment, I sometimes feel unwelcome. When someone says, if you keep working like this, you'll never find a husband, it irks me. It's none of their business. I've never been particularly keen on getting married. I've always thought if it happens, it happens. That's when I met Ken. Ken, a client liaison, is also 33, just like me. Being the same age, we hit it off right away. Every time I visited the client, Ken would greet me with a smile. He might come off a bit flashy, but he's friendly and great at livening up meetings, making them enjoyable. Of course, we talked about work, but even after meetings, our conversations never ended. Before I knew it, we were exchanging messages privately and began to dine out together regularly, just the two of us. Things moved quickly from there. Ken started making his interest clear. Initially, I only thought of him as a colleague, so I was confused at first and evaded his advances. But upon reflection, it wasn't a bad idea. Having worked together, I knew Ken was competent at his job, and I think his income was about the same as mine. He was clean-cut, and not bad-looking either. Most importantly, I felt really comfortable around him. I didn't hesitate much before deciding to date him. I was actually looking forward to it. If he hadn't said anything, I might have been the one to ask him out. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and 6 months later, he proposed, and we decided to get married. But then, an incredible problem arose.
You're kidding, right?
Come on, don't make such a scary face. One day after work, when I went to meet Ken, he was standing there with a boy who looked about elementary school age. A much younger friend? No, perhaps a relative's child. Had they run into each other by chance? Thinking it was someone related to Ken made me nervous. Feeling a bit intimidated, I approached Ken, and upon noticing me, he smiled sheepishly and said, "Meet my son, John, 10 years old." "Nice to meet you."
Huh? Son?
The boy named John awkwardly avoids my gaze. I, on the other hand, ended up staring at him as if trying to uncover some truth.
Wait. I don't understand. Son? What do you mean?
Ken laughed nervously as he grabbed my shoulder. I brushed his hand away.
No dodging the question. What? Were you married before?
Ken looked at me with a puzzled expression. Huh? Did I not mention it? I'm a divorced dad.
I had no idea.
I couldn't help raising my voice. I was on the verge of a meltdown, but seeing John's face, I managed to hold it together. I couldn't lose it in front of a child. I'm going home. I'll contact you later. I was far from calm. I barely get the words out. After all, how could anyone stay calm upon suddenly being told by their fiancé, "I'm a divorced dad," and then bring the child to a date without any warning? What was he thinking? As I turned to leave, Ken hastily grabbed my arm.
Hey! It took a lot for me to bring John here, and you're just gonna leave? That's not fair. Think about how John and I feel. Huh? Then think about how I feel. You could have at least told me before bringing him along.
I might have been shocked, but it would have been easier to accept than being surprised like this. I didn't even know he was divorced. I needed some time to prepare mentally.
What if I told you beforehand and you decided to break up with me just because I'm divorced with a son? That would be unbearable.
Ken glanced at John, then started stroking his head. Looking every bit the father. Look.
John is such a good kid. I was confident that once you met him, you'd feel a maternal instinct too. Huh?
He said it proudly, but that's not the point. He was making a lot of assumptions. I wanted to just walk away, but when my eyes accidentally met John's, I stopped. He looked nervous and quickly looked away, but his face still had an innocent look to it. John isn't to blame, but if I walked away and he felt responsible for that, what then? 10 years old. An age where he can understand things to some extent. I wouldn't want him to think he's a burden to his father's marriage. In the end, the three of us ended up having dinner together at a restaurant. Indeed, just as Ken said, John was a very good kid. In fact, he was so well behaved it felt almost unnatural. He would eat quietly during. Ken would talk to him, and he'd respond, but he wouldn't initiate conversation. Is it normal for a 10-year-old to be this calm? It was his first time meeting his father's partner. It wouldn't have been strange if he harbored negative feelings towards me. But I couldn't sense any emotions from John at all. It was as if he had given up on everything. Having met him, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Later, when I met with Ken alone, I asked him,
Hey, has John always been like this? Mature for his age, or should I say quiet? John?
Ken seemed pleased that I was interested in John.
Oh. You're curious, huh? Yeah, I mean, he's gonna be our son if we get married, right?
Despite feeling betrayed by him keeping his divorced single dad status a secret, I couldn't bring myself to break up with this carefree man. His demeanor was comforting. I had never met someone as easygoing as Ken.
So? What about it? Was he nervous around me?
Nah, that's just how John is.
He used to be a bit louder, I guess. Mireille used to scold him a lot.
Mireille, his ex-wife's name, perhaps? Come to think of it, I still know nothing about Ken's previous marriage. He is so open. I wonder if it's okay to ask.
Hey, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but what was your ex-wife like?
I asked carefully, and Ken didn't hesitate to tell me. She's 2 years older than me. Just looking at her, she's pretty. Really beautiful, but man, her personality is tough. No matter how much I earned, it was never enough for her.
Huh.
If he's praising her looks that much, she must be quite a beauty. As someone who's not very confident in my appearance, it kinda bothers me. Maybe sensing my unease, Ken hugged me from behind.
Don't worry. You're my best partner.
Yeah. I just can't dislike him. He always knows what to say. Besides, having a divorce and a child isn't like he cheated or anything. It just never came up before. Maybe him telling me before we got married actually shows he's sincere. I convinced myself to believe that. After that, I met with John several times. He was just as quiet as the first time we met. Getting married means considering important matters. I hoped he would get used to me, but what if his quietness was because he disliked me? Thinking it over didn't help, so when we were alone, I took the plunge and asked him.
If you're against it, we don't have to get married. What do you think?
I wondered if it was right to ask a 10-year-old, but I didn't want to marry without knowing his true feelings. John hesitantly answered, making my heart race.
I don't mind. I'm just shy. That's a relief.
And a few weeks later, we got married. Not exactly a honeymoon phase, but the start of a new family life. I was anxious. Sure, Ken is one thing, but what about John? Is he okay with me? To him, I'm practically a stranger, a stepmom. I hope we can get along, but even I haven't fully grasped suddenly having a 10-year-old son. John, at 10, must be even more anxious. I hope to alleviate any anxiety and get along well. That's what I was thinking. But contrary to my thoughts, problems came from an unexpected direction.
You're kidding, again?
I muttered to myself in response to a message from Ken on my smartphone. Maybe Ken is the type who doesn't take care once he's got it. After we got married, Ken's behavior changed drastically. Overtime and drinking parties became the norm. Without any guilt, he'd even come home in the morning. If this were a boyfriend. Well, even then, I'd be a bit unhappy, but now that I'm his wife, it's unbearably frustrating. Ken practically just comes home to sleep. John and I, still not fully accustomed to each other, were left alone without choice. Even if it were just me, but with growing John around, I couldn't skimp on meals. Even mealtimes became a source of stress.
How was school today?
It was normal. The conversation just doesn't flow. I feel bad for John, but I just can't think of topics to discuss with a 10-year-old. About a month into this routine, I finally lost my patience and confronted Ken.
Enough is enough. You're out drinking every single day. It's ridiculous.
Huh?
It's not like I enjoy drinking. There's this thing called socializing in the world. You're in sales, you should understand. It's not just about drinking parties. There are days when work just doesn't end.
If that's the case, I'm also swamped with work. Since we got married, I've been rushing home early because I worry about John, even when it means I can't work overtime. I've been starting early in the morning or using my lunch breaks to catch up. Lately, my lunch breaks have been all about working with one hand while eating sandwich with the other.
You used to have time to go on dates with me before we got married. It's not even the busy season now, so what's keeping you so busy? Come on, answer me.
Ken fell silent for a moment, looking slightly annoyed, then let out a small sigh and smiled.
My bad. I guess I've been taking you for granted. Let's go out for a meal, the three of us, this weekend as an apology. And I'll try to adjust my work schedule from now on. Really? You promise?
It's been a while since we've eaten out. I wonder where he'll take us. I can't help but feel excited, even though I know it's a bit silly of me. Ken took us to what looked like a very expensive high-end restaurant. Just the exterior of the place was overwhelming. It felt like the kind of place where important people might have meetings.
Hey, this looks expensive. Are you sure?
I whispered, not having any idea how much it might cost. Ken then covered his mouth, chuckling softly.
Stop it, you're embarrassing. You're making it obvious we're not rich. We stand out. To you, this might seem like a dream place. But I'm used to it.
I could feel my face heating up with embarrassment. He didn't have to say it in such a demeaning way. Thinking back, the places Ken and I went to before getting married were all reasonably priced. Even the place where he proposed was an Italian chain restaurant. So I was just worried that he was stretching himself too thin by bringing us here. And yet, he says he's used to it. Who has he been coming here with? I've never been brought here before.
All right.
I muttered an apology, following a waitress and Ken. Right this way. The smiling waitress led us to a private room, as was to be expected. This, and include the usual. Ken ordered with ease, as if he'd done it many times before. It looked like a place that could be used for entertaining clients, so maybe he's been here for work a few times. It would be a waste to sulk after being brought here, especially to such a high-end place that I might not get to visit again. I've got to enjoy it. Indeed, every dish that came out was delicious.
Eat up, so you have no regrets.
Ken was in a good mood, drinking his alcohol. He glanced at me and ostentatiously lifted his glass. If only you could drink too.
Indeed, it's a shame.
I've tried alcohol a few times after turning 21, but it seems I just don't have the constitution for it. It's not that I can't drink, I just don't enjoy it. Plus, alcoholic beverages are generally expensive. If I'm going to spend the same amount of money, I'd rather have juice or water. Since realizing this, I've stopped drinking alcohol, both privately and at work. Watching Ken now, I do feel a bit envious of how well he seems to enjoy his drinks, but I'm sure I wouldn't find it as tasty even if I tried the same.
Just a sip? The expensive stuff is good. I'll pass. Missing out on this, you're really losing out on life.
His drunken banter is irritating. Wasn't today supposed to be an apology? To blow off the bad feelings, I gulped down my ginger ale when a concerned voice came from beside me.
Are you okay?
John was looking at me with furrowed brows. Maybe my irritation showed on my face. It's embarrassing to have worried about him.
I'm fine, really. Thank you.
I waved my hands dismissively and then realized something. John hadn't touched his food at all.
Aren't you eating?
I asked casually, and John looked down as if panicked. This place certainly isn't kid-friendly. Everything Ken ordered was more suited to adult tastes. If only they had French fries or burger, something that appeals to everyone, but of course, there was none to be found. You must be hungry, huh? Let's grab something to eat on the way home. John nodded slightly at my words. I felt relieved to get a response. Looking at Ken, he had just finished the last of his drink in his glass. With all the food on the table eaten, it was about time to head home, so as not to keep John waiting.
Ken, that was delicious.
Thank you. When I hinted at leaving, Ken seemed to get the message and placed his empty glass on the table.
Then, shall we head home?
Yeah. As we stood up to leave, Ken suddenly exclaimed, "Oh."
What's wrong? I saw someone I know at the entrance. I'll just go say hi, so please settle the bill with this.
Got it. As I called the waitress over and paid the bill with the wallet Ken handed me, she chuckled at John.
Not doing it today, huh?
You usually do.
This?
The waitress gestured with her palm towards us, flipping it between rock and paper. Was it a goodbye gesture? John isn't close with me, has such a cute interaction with the waitress. It's a bit frustrating. After taking the payment, the waitress said, "Please wait a moment," and left the room.
So, John, you've been here a few times, huh?
As I turned back to John, he was trembling, holding his head.
What's wrong, John? You look pale, are you okay?
I caught myself mid-sentence. What the waitress did earlier wasn't a goodbye gesture.
Hey, Anna!
As John looked up at me fearfully, I quickly grabbed our things and stood up.
Let's go, John.
We hurried out of the room, intending to leave before Ken returned. However, as we approached the exit, I spotted Ken near the entrance. This way, he'd notice us while we were collecting our jackets.
We have no choice.
We gave up on our jackets and ran through the courtyard, over the fence, and escaped from the restaurant. After walking for a while, we managed to catch a taxi and dashed into a nearby hotel. Throughout the escape, John was silent. I bought some water and handed it to John. As we sat down and he drank water, the stiffness in John's face finally seemed to relax a bit.
Are you okay now? Feeling better?
Yes. That's when I brought up something I had been curious about.
That thing the waitress did earlier, it was a hand signal, right?
John slowly nodded. From an open hand to bending the thumb and then covering it to make a fist. At first glance, it just looks like changing from an open hand to a fist, but in reality, this gesture means "please help me." So, it meant that John, when coming to the restaurant with Ken, for some reason, relied not on his father Ken but on a stranger, the waitress. This suggests that maybe Ken was causing John some kind of harm. That's why I decided to flee the restaurant with him at that moment.
Could it be that Ken did something to you?
No. I wasn't harmed by anyone.
Then who?
After squeezing his eyes shut and taking a deep breath, John slowly started to explain. The truth is, The story John told me was far beyond anything I had imagined.
To think that Ken could be that kind of person.
I'm sorry. My dad caused trouble, even though you're so kind. The sight of a 10-year-old apologizing on behalf of his father was heartbreakingly sad. At the same time, I felt a surge of anger towards Ken. Either way, we can't let this go on. John and I began to plan what to do next. During our conversation, Ken called several times.
We still have more to talk about, but it looks like we should head home soon.
After paying the fee, we left the hotel without staying.
What were you guys doing? I wanted to introduce you to my friends.
When we got back home, Ken complained.
Sorry. I got a stomach ache and ended up staying in the park's restroom near the restaurant. There are restrooms in the restaurant too. Well, you know, it's embarrassing in such a fancy place.
Fine. Whatever. He mumbled, but it seemed like I managed to deceive him. Then, I started preparing for the coming days. About a week later, with my preparations complete, I made a suggestion to Ken.
I feel like drinking after a long time. Oh. Cool. Let's go.
John was going to stay at a friend's house that day, so Ken and I planned to go out for drinks.
It's rare for you to drink. You usually don't. I usually don't feel like it, but I suddenly wanted to. This is the first time I'm drinking with you, Anna.
Ken was excited and kept drinking one after another. He also kept urging me to drink at the same pace.
Are you sure you can handle all this? Don't worry. If Anna passes out, I'll take care of you.
And if you pass out, Ken, I'll take care of you. We continued to drink, teasing each other. A few hours later, we were at home. Lying on the bed, Ken, who had been snoring loudly, slowly opened his eyes and exclaimed.
What? Where am I?
Good morning. I greeted Ken with a smile as he woke up surprised.
This is our house. Our home? But you were drinking with me and…
Yes, and then you passed out first. Ken muttered something under his breath. Clearly not satisfied.
Did I walk to the bed myself?
No.
I just happened to ask a friend of yours who was passing by to help bring you home.
Ken's face tightened slightly.
Is that so?
Good timing then. I owe them one. I'll have to thank them.
Oh, you know who your friend is without me even mentioning a name?
Ken looked as if he wished he hadn't said that. Clearly flustered.
No, well, I can guess who it might be since I often go out drinking with them.
I see. For a moment there I thought.
Thought what? Don't beat around the bush, just spit it out.
By now, Ken's lips were quivering, and he had gone pale. The confidence he had the night before was gone. He knew his plan had failed. And now, he was wondering how much I knew. Unfortunately for him, the answer is everything. I know everything.
Everything?
He is easy to understand. His voice cracked. I exhaled through my nose and stated firmly.
That you're a serial marriage scammer. What are you talking about?
Ken's face went from pale to white, forcing a dry laugh.
Marriage scam? What do you mean? We're legitimately married. We're a real family, right?
Yes, we're married. Technically.
But this marriage is just another one of your divorce plan schemes, isn't it?
Before we got married, I was shocked to learn that Ken had been divorced and had a child. But an even more astonishing truth awaited me. It turned out that Ken wasn't just divorced once, but 4 times.
Divorced 4 times. Ah, but rather, it's impressive that you managed to get married 4 times. Must have been to people like me who are easy to deceive. Wait, hold on. What are you talking about? Oh, don't know? Drank so much you lost your memory, perhaps?
I laughed mockingly, and Ken shouted that. That's it.
You can't drink, right? Why am I the one who passed out first? I get it, you used some sneaky trick. Cheater. Liar.
Ken glared at me. I glared right back.
Unlike you, I haven't used any underhanded tactics, nor have I lied. But you can't drink.
That's where he's mistaken. I've never once said I can't drink.
It's not that I can't drink.
I choose not to. Ken frowned and tilted his head.
That's just an excuse, right? Pretending to be strong despite being weak to alcohol. Weak to alcohol?
Who?
What?
I pulled out a can of beer from the fridge, popped it open, and downed it in one go.
It's the opposite. I'm too strong for alcohol. It's like juice to me. I can't get drunk no matter how much I drink.
Ken's mouth fell open in shock. Too bad.
That's why your plan with your friends failed miserably. Ugh.
Ken's eyes darted around.
I told you, I know everything.
His methods were insidiously terrible. The pattern was clear. Marry a woman who earns a decent amount and is supposedly weak to alcohol. Then create some pretext to take her to a fancy restaurant.
That place, it's a familiar high-end restaurant you've visited multiple times, right? The waitress mentioned it. You always bring a colleague who loves to drink, asking for dishes and desserts to include alcohol.
At that time, the waitress thought I was just one of Ken's colleagues, not his wife.
And you specifically requested that the cooking methods not allow too much alcohol to evaporate. Why? No, it's just that, I was trying to let her know how good the drink is,
Ken started to fumble with his words, making excuses. Even now, he's trying to wriggle his way out of the situation.
No, that's not it. You wanted your intoxicated wife to cheat in her drunken state, right?
It was a despicable scheme to get friends to hit on his drunk wife, creating the illusion of infidelity. That night, after we drank for a while, one of Ken's friends happened to pass by. Surprised to find Ken out cold, not me. After confronting Ken's friend, it turned out there was no actual infidelity. But compromising photos were taken, and with the woman's memory hazy from drinking, everyone struggles to outright deny it.
You used the fake infidelity and guilt you created to pressure your past wives into divorcing, all of whom paid up just as you asked.
How vile. Ken glared at me spitefully but then smirked unexpectedly.
But this time it's different, right? Nothing actually happened.
As if he was claiming innocence because of that. I can't allow that to happen.
That's right, this time you just got too drunk.
Ken's lips curled slightly at my words.
See? All right. I'll change my ways. I've realized you're the only one for me.
There's Mireille.
Huh?
I repeated her name so Ken could hear clearly. Mireille.
Your ex-wife, who still has a close relationship with you, your partner in marriage fraud. Why would you? Don't make me say it again, all right?
I told you, I know everything. John had told me. Mom and Dad, they seem to meet every day. They don't have a bad relationship.
Then why?
I don't know, but they both said it was for money. The reason for their divorce remains unclear. Being a single parent does come with more support, but would someone divorce just for that? I wonder how much trouble John went through because of it. Even a 10-year-old child understood that his father was up to no good. That's why he sought help through hand signals from the waitress. But the waitress, unaware of its meaning, couldn't grasp what John was going through, making my heart ache.
So, this time I'll be the one who is asking from you. Huh? Why? After all the marriage fraud and cheating with your ex-wife, you think you can get away with it?
Ken bit his lower lip in frustration.
Ugh.
Yes,
and I'll be informing the police about your past wives too. I'm sure once they know the truth, none of them will ever forgive you. No way!
Ken collapsed on the spot like an octopus. If only he really were an octopus. I'd have loved to slice him up and scatter him across the sea. Ken readily agreed to the divorce after that. Moreover, it turns out he might have a child with Mireille. She's been pressing him for a remarriage.
But, is it really my child?
He wondered, but I couldn't care less. If he doubted it, he shouldn't have engaged in such acts. It's just more evidence of his infidelity for me. The alimony was paid in a lump sum. Luckily, it was Ken's bonus month, which was a relief. Ken had hoped for installments, but that would mean staying connected. No way I'd want that. I blocked his number. Rumor has it Ken's currently in a tight spot. After being sued by his ex-wives, one of them stormed into his office to expose everything. It forced him to resign and left him unemployed. Ken sold everything of value and ended up moving into Mireille's place to scrape by. Initially, Mireille, who had been pushing for remarriage, refused after seeing Ken's current state and now fights with him daily, demanding he leave as soon as possible. It's strange, considering how close they seemed while engaging in wrongdoing together for years. Hearing these rumors, I decided it was time for a job change. The thought of being targeted for revenge by them, now at their lowest, was no joke. Luckily, I had been invited to join another company, which I gratefully accepted. The salary wasn't much different, but the earlier finishing time was a bonus. Especially since I wasn't just looking out for myself anymore. Yes, after the divorce, I decided to take in John. The reason was simple. He begged me to. I want to live a life I can be proud of. That's probably impossible if I stay with my mom and dad. We have no blood relation and are still cautious around each other. More like roommates than a family. Yet, he started to smile more. And talks about his school life. Just hearing him share makes me incredibly happy, a curious aspect